You know, you're supposed to be in the coffin. Wait a minute, you're standing at the door all buzzed up. That's all and good except for one thing. Who's the dude in the coffin? You see?
I want to quickly just go through the ships that were lost in the storm of 1913. The Isaac M. Scott,
Yep.
lost on Lake Huron, found in 1976, 28 men aboard, all perished.
Yep.
The Charles S. Price, by the way, she was found floating upside down very near the entrance to the St. Clair River, so at the bottom end of Lake Huron. The assistant engineer Milton Smith, who decided not to join the crew for that Great Lakes storm on a premonition he had for whatever reason, he helped identify the bodies of the wreck.
Can I add something to what
yeah.
And then an addendum? That Milton Smith you talked about, he had the premonition, he got off. Well, after the whole thing came down, they asked this Milton Smith to identify the bodies that were washing up on the shore, which he did. But I think it was the chief engineer showed up, and he's wearing a life jacket from the Regina, not the Price. So there's controversy there. Did the Regina, you know, they had to abandon ship, or was the Price and the Regina tried to go to help? Or, and several people have said this, when these bodies started washing up, there were ghoulish people that started robbing them. They'd go, because they always wear money belts and stuff, you know, they'd get their wallet and their money and stuff.
They'd come down to the beach and go through the,
and
corpses?
And to the point where the federal government says, you get caught with any of this memorabilia, you are going to jail for a long time. And people turned in a lot of stuff. And they think maybe one of them life jackets, they took them off to try and rob the guy, they put a different life jacket on. Now, that's a possibility. Or the Price and Regina collided, that's another one. And they tried to save the crew, and then the Price tipped over upside down.
So possibly some of these crew members from the Price got over onto the Regina, but didn't help because the Regina went down too.
He identified the bodies that he knew from that crew. There was no question about it. But the undertaker said, "Are you
Think
sure?"
about carrying that for the rest of your life.
He said, "Are you sure this is the chief engineer?" He said, "I just talked to him 4 days ago. You know, a week ago. I talked to him. This is him." Why is he wearing the Regina life jacket? See the mystery? Ooh, there's a mystery there.
You're talking an engineer off the Price, washed up with a Regina life jacket.
That is correct.
Now, how do you even connect that? But the Charles S. Price was the first ship found because it was found in floating upside down in the coming days in 1913. Okay, so we went through the Isaac M. Scott. The Charles S. Price went down with 28 men. The John McGean went down with 28 men, Lake Huron, found in 1985. The Argus and the Hydrus, you mentioned earlier, were sister ships. Argus with 28 men went down, Lake Huron, found in 1972. The Hydrus, 25 men, went down in Lake Huron, discovered 2015. This is all fascinating to me. The Henry B. Smith, we talked about that. 23 men lost. Lake Superior, found 2013. But the James Carruthers, 22 men lost. Lake Huron, not found yet. The Regina, 20 men in Lake Huron, found, discovered 1986. The Wexford with 20 men, all died in Lake Huron, found in the year 2000. The Leafield, they're still looking for it. 18 men lost on Lake Superior. The Plymouth, we talked about that, lost on Lake Michigan, has not been found with 7 men. And I think the one ship we didn't mention yet was the Buffalo, which went down with 6 men in Lake Erie. That one they found way back in 1914. That covers the 12 ships.
It was a light ship. It was a light ship.
Well, a light ship?
And that a floating lighthouse is basically what they were. You know, it's
really?
Yeah, it was a light ship. And,
so they would serve as a beacon, a directional finder.
The Carruthers was a state-of-the-art vessel.
Brand new.
Brand freaking new. But the Regina now was only 6 years old. And her purpose was to go up into Georgian Bay and service a lot of those small towns up there. Now, Georgian Bay, I'm telling you what, that could be a great lake, too. This is a humongous lake up there.
Sure. Regina.
Oh, here we go.
20 men.
She's going to visit 10 different ports around Georgian Bay. She had 8 railroad cars worth of canned goods for the winter, get through the winter, you know. Razors, matches, liquor. Oh, gotta have liquor. Ooh, and a big champagne batch for the New Year's Eve party. 140 tons of baled hay were on board for the horses. And as a final touch, large sewer and gas pipes were stacked and secured on the boat's top deck. Now think about top heaviness there, you know. She took off, and she was found recently. What did you say?
1986.
86. That one, yeah. They just didn't have the diving capabilities back in 1913. They had the old hard hat thing, you know. But nowadays they've got, and even back in '86, it was marked improvements.
We know the James Carruthers went down on Lake Huron. In fact, most of the ships lost in 1913 went down on Lake Huron. In fact, the only lake of the 5 Great Lakes that didn't gobble up a ship was Lake Ontario, but the Carruthers went down on Huron, 22 hands on board, and to this day, it has not been found. I wonder if there's even anyone still looking for it. Does anyone care?
They're looking for the lee field right now.
It went down in Superior, not been found. And the Plymouth has not been found.
Right, that is correct. That is correct.
Those are the 3 of the 12. I think the James Carruthers still has the imagination of those that pay attention to this industry, because it was one of the big ships of the day, 550 feet long, which was big for 1913. We know it went down in Lake Huron, but we don't know where it is. I think it would be an interesting day in history if we find the Carruthers. There is an interesting story I want to talk about briefly with the Carruthers. The captain was William Wright. He washed ashore somewhere, and he was identified by his big giant red mustache. But the interesting story to me with the Carruthers, Thomas Thompson was the father of Carruthers crewman John Thompson. Thomas Thompson, the father, thought John, his son, was on the boat because, you know, that was his job. So as the corpses washed ashore, Thomas Thompson, the father, scoured the corpses for his son John. He actually took possession of a body that he identified as his son. You know, he thought it was his son. The grave was already dug. The son walks into the home, into his own wake, which is in progress. So, but different reactions from mother and father. Mother was overjoyed. The father, well, he was ticked off, angered at the debts he had to incur and the shame he had to incur. And by the father's quote, "It's just like you to come home and attend your own wake. And you can get right out of this house until this thing blows over." Those are some of the stories that came out of 1913.
Well, there's no question. In November's Fury, the way they described it was that, he had transferred onto a different ship. He went up and identified this, but he had a JT tattoo on his arm, had a slightly deformity on his foot, and he also had a couple of teeth was missing. And this body fitted perfectly, okay? As the funeral was going on in a parlor, remember now, years ago, funerals were in, we call it living room now, or family room now. Back then it was the parlor, you know.
Of the house.
And somebody knocks at the door, and that father gets up and he opens the door, and he looks out and he passes out. Here, the guy had found out about it, but when he got there, he didn't have the nerve. He went to a local bar and caught the buzz, man. You know what I'm saying? He started pounding down numerous adult beverages before he could get the nerve to go to his own funeral. That's why the old man was so PO'd at him. He shows up at the door. "Oh, you know, you're supposed to be in the coffin. Wait a minute, you're standing at the door all buzzed up." That's all in good except for one thing. Who's the dude in the coffin? You see?
Now we got to figure out that mystery.
It's a mystery wrapped in an enigma here. So they shipped that body back to where they found it, and unfortunately, nobody ever claimed the body. They didn't know who he was. I think they buried him in a grave unknown on the headstone, victim of the storm of 1913. So those are the two main things as far as to have the storm kick up a ghost ship that had sunk years earlier. That's one thing. And to have the dead guy come up and attend his own funeral. You know, if I'm at a funeral and the guy that's supposed to be in a casket shows up, I'm going to say 5 of the most important words you've ever heard. You know what they are? Feats don't fail me now. I'm gone.
That's a Rod Serling Twilight episode
it
there.
It absolutely is, you know. Because you, my good man, are a tug and barge man.
I'm a tugboat guy.
There you go, okay.
No doubt about it.
The name of the tug was the James H. Martin, and the name of the barge they were towing was the Plymouth, okay? They had hit such bad weather between Gull Island, he decides to cut the tug loose, from the barge and leave it sit there, and they dropped an anchor. I must have had an anchor on the barge. He says, we'll be back. He takes off. 2 or 3 days later, when the things blow up, they come back to Gull Island to get the barge. Ain't no barge. Ain't no sign of nothing. Ain't no way, no way. Now, they know it sank because the wreckage from the Plymouth started, including hatch covers and lifeboats, drifted ashore near Ludington, Michigan. And there was a note in a bottle that washed up. It said, "Dear wife and children, we were left here in Lake Michigan by Captain McKinnon of the James H. Martin tug and anchor. He went away, never said goodbye or anything. Lost one man yesterday. We've been out of the storm for 40 hours. Goodbye, dear ones. I might see you in heaven. Pray for me." Now, they had a U.S. Marshal aboard that Plymouth, Chris Keenan. Left no doubt about what happened in Plymouth's final hours because his body washed up in Manistee, 80 miles away from where the Plymouth went down. And Captain Axel Larson's body was discovered in December. The other crewman and the Plymouth itself was never found. But yet there is a note in a bottle. Now I think the Carruthers, I think, is worth mentioning because it was known as the Wheat King. That's what she held, 375,000 bushels of wheat. Man, that's a lot of Wheaties, man. When they left the dock, the J.H. Sheetal left with them. And because the Carruthers was so new, the captain, he said, we're still learning the boat's tricks. I mean, every boat has idiosyncrasies. You know, you can do this and you can do that, but some things you can't do. He said some of the crew was complaining that the paint in the rooms was still a little sticky. That's how new this boat was.
Brand new.
Okay, so anyway, they take off. The Sheetal, trying to follow, the other ship there, didn't last 2 hours. It was just couldn't do it, keep up. So she anchored out between, let's see, where's Pie Island, which is a small island running out by north of Isle Royale. Normally, the waters around there are so turbulent and the funneled waves, it makes it so rough you can't stay there. But the way the weeds were, he could stay there. The winds changed direction, and so he left. The Sheetal did. And that captain said, are you ready for this? This is the most wicked sea. I have never seen such a sea like this in my life. What did McSorley say?
Same thing.
I've never seen seas like this in my life.
Comparable storms.
Well, anyway, the Sheetal makes her way down into Lake Huron, and she's right at Harbor Beach. This is where he's at right now. He's off Harbor Beach. 5:45, an hour into it, he hit the full fury of the storm. A gigantic sea mounted the stern, flooding the fantails, sending torrents of water through all the passageways, concaving all the cabins. He had to turn this ship and get it into the bow into the waves. It's the only way this is going to happen. And he said it was all they could do, him and the first mate, everything they could do to get that boat to turn. He got her turned, but they're doing one of these numbers. And I remember my dad telling me when they got caught in storms, they had to do this. When that stern comes out of the water and that props out, they had to throttle back. Otherwise, it would just shake it loose. Now the ship comes back in the water.
Turn that propeller loose without water? Are you kidding? Not good.
Give her the gas again, until she comes out again. Full ahead, neutral. Full ahead, neutral for hours. Hours. Back in them days, hey, they'd singled, the Chad burned. Nowadays, the captain controls everything from the pilot house, but back in them days, you had to talk to the engineers to, full ahead, quarter head, all astern, whatever. Could you imagine doing that for hours?
That would be a lot of coordination.
Skill of the highest degree. Now, they took soundings because they couldn't see where they were. There was no radar. Could you imagine sending somebody on deck? Mark Twain, how deep's the water here, You go see how deep the water. I ain't going out there, you nuts. That's how they did it. Anyway, he came to an unsettling conclusion that the bow was 10 feet lower than the stern. Half of the fuel hatch and the boiler house had been washed overboard. The starboard side of the after end cabin had been carried away. They had to turn it again because they were just taking such a beating. But they separated because the Sheetal went behind Pie Island there, but the wind changed direction and it looked a little better. So he took off again, but Carruthers was long gone by that time. They didn't know where they were at, They made it. But guess what? the suits who owned the boat guy, who told you to turn that boat? Why didn't you just, do this? Hey, wait. The captain is in charge at the time, not somebody sitting behind a desk with a white shirt and tie on. You do what it takes at the moment. This was the storm. They called it the storm of the century at the time, a white hurricane. But you're right. This last blow, what would happen if they'd all of a sudden you lost all these ships and 250 people died? In this day and age, why, my God, think about that. The whole shipping industry would have shut down. There'd be lawsuits. You don't even want to think about it.
Lawsuits till the end of time.
Oh.